I remember as well, like, looking over at you. You just gave me a look and you went, this isn't the FNAF I remember. But would you say, overall, was this movie worth the wait? Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Campfire Chats. I am Luke and as always I am joined by my good friend and co-host Alfie.
Yo.
So last night me and Alfie we went and saw the FNAF movie, so we've let it brew for a bit and I think it's about time we give our thoughts on the movie. So the way it's going to work is we're going to be covering spoilers later on in the video, but for the first part we're going to just be giving a non-spoiler review. So, Alfie, how would you summarise this movie in a nutshell?
I would say delivered the bare minimum, went a bit above, but there was room for improvement, I'd say.
Yeah, that seems fair. I'd say going into this movie, I knew it wouldn't be something Oscar-worthy. I knew it was going to be a film for the fans, and there was some things that I was expecting to see, which obviously they delivered on. There was some things I would have liked to have seen. Again, we'll go into that later on in the video, but I'd say the quality of the movie was definitely exceptional. The set design was amazing, and the animatronics made by the Jim Henson Company, again, incredible. They done an amazing job transferring the designs from the game into live action in the movie. Masterpiece. And a lot of it as well was actually using real animatronics. There was only a few scenes where it was people in the suits, so that's nice.
There's only one gripe I had with the design of the actual animatronics, but I can get into that. Like, it's a nitpick if anything, but I'm pretty sure I've said this previously. The eyes.
Yeah.
And everyone knows what I mean by that. Everyone knows.
I think in some cases the eyes works, especially the red eyes that we saw in the trailer that everyone flipped out at. I think context is very important. I think in some cases it would have been nice to have had those dark eyes, and again I'll get into that later in reference to one of the scenes. But yeah, I think context is what really is important when we're talking about the eyes, because sometimes the red eyes actually do work, but
but the white eyes, and I'll get into this a bit because I know this is something we'll talk about later, but it kind of connotates towards something that is to do thematically with like the spirits of the children. But again, I'll get into that later when we're actually digging into it.
That's fair.
I'm not shitting on the film or anything. Like, overall, yes, I thought it was good, and I really enjoyed myself.
I'd say it was a good watch. Like I didn't say I came out of the film disappointed or anything. It was a good watch, and I look back at it and like, yeah, I was happy with that.
I'd watch it again.
Yeah, definitely. As well, it was rammed with Easter eggs and references. So, because it was a film for the fans, they're gonna have all those little things, and the soundtrack as well was incredible. The main theme for this movie, spotless, when it was playing at the start of the film with the title sequence. Oh, amazing. It fit the aesthetic of the film perfectly. The acting as well, for the most part, was good, and Josh Hutcherson done a pretty good job as Mike Schmidt, as well as we got a few cameos in there. We won't spoil which cameos were in the film. We'll address that later on, but yeah, there's quite a few cameos in this film.
Yeah, the acting was like, given what the actors actually had to work, because I stand by the scene with just the actors and not like what we know was some of the weaker points. But the actors, for what they had, I do think they did work well with what they were given, even if it wasn't always that great.
Yeah.
Like what they was actually having to deal with. Like they portrayed it very well, but the actual what they was actually trying to portray was a bit lackluster.
And the scenes where the animatronics were on the screen were incredibly engaging, and they were definitely the highlight of this film. It's what everyone came to see, so they executed those scenes pretty well. Right, so that's it for the pros, I'd say. The cons, there's a few. Again, more so when we enter the spoiler areas, we'll pick up. We'll dig into those a little bit more. I'd say the biggest con though is the pacing. Like mentioned previously, the animatronic scenes were the best parts of this film, but the stuff in between could have been a bit better.
Yeah, but that's very common in films like this. Like, there's plenty of examples where, like, a couple of examples, not digging in, is like Godzilla and Alien versus Predator. When the actual like title sake is on screen, then yeah, it's really good. But as soon as you cut away from them in their entirety to just the actors, no discredit to the actors at all, but it just becomes a slog in my opinion. Like, you felt like you were sitting there for ages waiting for the
Yeah.
let's face it, the character you're waiting for to come back on screen, and it's
Even
just
still,
like
even when it was just set inside the pizzeria, like that familiarity is like what keeps you on the edge of your seat. Like, oh, okay, I know where we are.
I want to add the FNAF like pizzeria as one of like the iconic horror locations, along with the Myers house and the Elm Street house. Get it done, people.
Obviously, it wasn't like for like as what it was in the film, but again, I mean, in the game, but they still done a
Changes that to be made.
yeah, of course, in order for it to work. But I'd say it was even improved from the game as well. Like, yeah, it was pretty good.
See, I actually disagree with that.
You reckon?
Because the thing is with like the map on the first int is it always felt claustrophobic, whereas this place was very open, very like well lit as well. So that kind of took away from the horror because you could see anything from a mile away, and there was no claustrophobia, which is kind of what the first game is all about. Like, you're in an entrapped space. So I think that ended it a little bit.
I'm more talking about in the details, kind of.
Yeah, like I can't knock that in the slightest.
Like the parts and service room, that was pretty cool. Seeing all those little details in there. It would have been cool. The office though wasn't very accurate at all. That would have been cool if they had the doors, but I can understand maybe why they didn't do that. But yeah, I'd say for the most part the set was pretty good. Right, another thing as well though, jump scares. You'd expect for a FNAF movie for it to be packed with jump scares, but there was actually surprisingly not many. And where jump scares are like one of the main premises of the game, it would have been, I think it would have benefited the film to have more jump scares, because normally jump scares are just a cheap way to get you, but I think this film could have definitely benefited from a few more, because the ones we got, they weren't very in your face. It was just little. It's hard to say.
Yeah, but I wonder how much of that was to do with the rating, because obviously if you was to do a jump scare, well, that might knock the rating up a bit, especially if certain details are met. So I'm wondering how much of that is to do with the rating, but that's purely speculation. I can't really say much about that.
I would definitely agree that this film was held back a bit by its rating.
100%. 100%.
It was PG-13 in the US, 15 in the UK, which doesn't make sense at all, though, because Stephen King's It was rated 15 in the UK, which was much more mature and gruesome than this film.
All right.
This film didn't really have much gore. It did have a bit of gore.
That is true, but what you've got to understand is Stephen King, It, and all his other let's face it, they're geared towards adults. Like, yes, people who are younger can, but that is 100% geared towards adults. But this franchise, let's be honest, is not.
No, exactly.
And that's why they made the rating so low. And even I'm pretty sure the director.
It was rated. I'm saying like it was rated R in the US, but 15 in the UK. Yet this film, FNAF, was rated PG-13 in the US, but still 15 in the UK. Surely it should have been PG in the UK. This film.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's
different.
I'm guessing there's like different standards that each kind of rating
Yeah.
companies go by, so that's probably down to that.
Yeah, I mean, what do we know about rating movies in that sense? But yeah, I
We
say
can
they.
we can review them, but we can't bleed and rate them.
I would say that they done well with what they could do, though, and I was actually surprised with some of the gore that they did display.
See, I actually disagree. I think it could have been done not a lot better, but better, because there are certain
I
films I
definitely
can think
agree,
of
but I'd.
that they're rated like for us like the everyone. I can't actually remember. Is it E for everyone? U for anyway?
I swear
They're
that's
rated
games.
anyway. So they're rated for everyone, but they are terrifying. And like these are kids' films, but then I can go and watch it, and I think that would not have scared me when I was younger. Like,
No.
don't get there's a few things I probably my mother would have probably had to cover my eyes. But I never watched that film and thought when I was younger that really would have got me. Whereas there are certain other films that are much lower rated I can think of, like, yeah, that genuinely got under my skin. Don't get me wrong, obviously ratings change as time goes on, and I've not been a kid for a while, but oh, that made me sound old. I'm not old, I'm young, damn it. But yeah, I just think it could have took a few more risks with the more horror aspect, because
100%. Yeah.
there are certain scenes that kind of just like, and they can be preceded by like a really good scene, like, I don't know, example, a chase scene. But then there's this next scene where they're acting like this really haha low haha funny, like, and it's like,
Yeah.
we're meant to be scared of these here. We're not meant to be like, oh, this I don't know. We're meant to be scared of them. Why are you trying to make them like, I think cute, whatever? And the thing is, you know exactly what scene I'm talking about.
Yeah, and again, we'll get into that in the spoiler discussion. But I definitely agree that it felt the tone of the movie was a bit over the place. Like at the start of the film, they executed the tone perfectly. Obviously, their approach wasn't to be a like for the game. That wasn't their aim for this. But yeah, it would have been nice to have had that that feeling that you got from playing the game with this movie.
I will
and
say
there was
that,
a few again, the start of the film was executed masterfully. And actually,
Yeah,
a
agreed.
little known fact that not many people might know about this, but in that starting scene, the night guard was actually meant to be played by Markiplier, which would have been his cameo. But yeah, unfortunately, he couldn't make it into the movie because he's working on Iron Lung. So you never know; he might be in the next movie. I think.
Something I'm very glad this film didn't do. Like, we can knock it for being tonally inconsistent. I will say the one thing they did do that I was worried that they would do was try and insert like a humor aspect, like try and kind of hard to describe because there are certain scenes that you will have a giggle at it, but it's not like an overly present theme. Like no forced humor. That's what I should really say. Like making you laugh for the sake of a laugh.
I think a good example was like that lawyer. Just whenever he was on the screen, it just made you laugh.
Legend.
He was so I think this is probably the most we can say without giving away spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, leave this video bookmarked and come back when you're done watching the film. You can hear us go into more detail. Right, okay, so from now on we are going into spoilers now. Okay,
you've been warned.
You've been warned. Okay, right, let's get into it. So what do you think we shall address first then?
I think there's a certain character that needs to be discussed.
Big Yellow Rabbit himself.
That's the one.
All right, William Afton. Obviously, he's a very key and important character in Five Nights at Freddy's. Wish he would have had a bit more screen time in this film because he stole the show when he was on the screen. Matthew Lillard done a phenomenal job as Afton, but I think just would have been nice to have that little bit more, and I think they could have developed more of the backstory. Obviously, we know his backstory from the games, but in the film, I think context was needed a bit more.
Thematically, obviously, this film was very much game number one. So, in sticking with what we know so far, it's likely film number two, game number two. So, game number three, film number three. Game number three is where we really get into kind of like the details of Afton. So obviously you can't just have it all being just him as he ends up at the end. So I'm guessing what they're going to do is they are going to interject like more lore, probably in film number 2 as well, but they're really going to get into it in film number 3. And it also kind of leaves you wanting more, which is a good thing, because he was on screen, and as you said, he stole the show. If he'd have been on screen more, we'd have just wanted more of him, because he was like, oh, I won't lie, the other actors did do well. He was the one actor that injected a bit of life into his role. He was very like with his, and obviously he's a very experienced horror film actor. He knows how to ham it up.
And I would say,
I think having him in it too much sold him a little bit, which would have been I don't know, would have ruined the effect of what is essentially the big reveal.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't have asked for much more though. Maybe just like a flashback scene or something, you know, just to learn his motivations a bit more. I think
that's another thing though.
I think
rating wise for the kids.
Yeah, although I just think a scene where he was showing that manipulative side of him would have been creepy to see. And I think it also would have benefited the finale as well, where the animatronics obviously get their revenge and we see that Springlock suit failure, which, again, I think that was executed pretty well as well, considering it is a PG-13 rating. They couldn't have gone over the top with the blood and all
they
that.
didn't.
But
blood was everywhere in that scene.
Yeah, it was... Yeah, it was done well. I think when Matthew Lillard, obviously, or William Afton, said the line, I always come back, it was nice that they threw it in there. Did it really make sense in the context of the scene? Not really, because what has he come back from previously? He hasn't come back from anything, so saying, I always come back wouldn't really make sense. They should have saved that for the next film where he does come back from being spring locked and he's spring trapped. That would have made more sense. But they're just going to throw stuff like that in there, aren't they? Just to satisfy the fans. Like, oh, he did say the line. Yeah.
Didn't see it me once. Cringe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's all I would have really have liked to have seen a bit more of William Afton, because I think that flashback would have benefited the finale.
Back on what you said about like I always come back, that actually kind of brings into a point that I want to mention. In that you mentioned earlier that the kid actors, what they did were very well, but I think they were portrayed a bit off in a way, because they almost seemed like they wanted to be the animatronics, where obviously in the games that is not the case at all. And I think the kind of vengeful spirit aspect is kind of what keeps them tethered. So maybe with him saying I always come back, that's kind of the birth of that vengeful spirit, because as we all know at this point, like Afton does come back, so maybe that line is a precursor to that.
Maybe.
Obviously there's plenty of examples of like vengeful spirits, like they're wronged, they're killed, but then they refuse to leave them all, like the Ring, the Grudge, like XYZ, but there has to be a wrongdoing, which the kids don't really portray to me. Like, again, they seem quite content to be animatronics. It's kind of like, I know they've been lied to this whole time about what actually happened, but it's like,
yeah. And I think
at the end of the day, you are still killed.
I don't think
like,
they
sure, you don't
realised
know
that. I think it was only until the end of the movie that they then realised what had actually happened to them and why they are the way they are, and that's why they got their revenge.
I don't know. They just seemed a bit too accepting of it, like not even really questioning it. Like, if they can't remember, surely a massive kind of question hanging over their head would be, well, hang on a minute, how comes I'm a giant rabbit, chicken, bear, fox? Then,
I mean,
but
FNAF lore is very complicated, and we all know that.
And Scott Cawthon helped, so you know he didn't help with that at all.
I think it was actually done quite well, though, that Springlock scene, because all the fan scenes that people have tried to make of the Springlock suit failure, it's always been depicted as very gruesome, screaming at the top of his lungs. But I think William Afton just sort of accepting and embracing becoming an animatronic and putting on the head actually shows a more sadistic side to him, that he's like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna embrace this.
Like, in the game, it's very clear that happening did cause him that like legit like there was no acceptance when he was getting absolutely mulched in the game. Like he was getting like blended basically. Like that scene. Like yeah, that is what you'd realistically do if someone done something of that nature. Like in the film, obviously it's a lot more tame because ratings, yay. But yeah, it was a very different. Like again, with you said like him putting on the helmet, head, whatever. There is a level of
Mask and
acceptance.
helmet, yeah.
Again, I don't. It just like obviously for going from the game where he very clearly didn't want that because again reactions indicate that's what happened. To it being like, but then what reason does he really have to come? Obviously, this isn't going to be something to answered in later films, but if he's accepting of it, what reason does his spirit have to remain? Like, if his spirit is at peace, why is it not moving on?
He's not accepting death. He's accepting becoming an animatronic because he knows. Because obviously, he knows what happened to the children, so he knows that the same thing's gonna happen to him. He almost sees it as a way of becoming more powerful.
Yeah, but the kids do it because like there's an unanswered question about something that ultimately changed their life that was completely out of their control. Like I don't know. It's a very because obviously I'm looking more at the game because I know what happens in the game. Well, I think I know what happens in the game. Again, that's up for debate. I think I know what happens. Like the kids are vengeful spirits. Because in the games as well, it's not the animatronics that actually get Afton. In the game, it's actually like the ghosts of the kids that kind of scare him into the suit.
Yeah.
So it's not like a he's in it kind of thing. It's like he is trying to escape these vengeful spirits who know what he has done. Like they're haunting him. So that was their vengeance. And the vengeful side of him is, well, he didn't want to die in that moment because that was a complete freak accident. I say freak accident, them suits probably aren't the safest things to put on, but you get my drift. Like he didn't want to get mincemeated inside a suit, so that would be why he's tethered to the realm. But yeah, comparing the film and the game is probably not the best idea word for word because obviously there are major differences between both. I'm just going off of the game. That is the gist of what I got. I'm not claiming to know the lore in and out, by the way. I'm just going off of what I've seen. But it will be very curious to see where they go with it.
Yeah, I would say that overall this film was more focused on the lore side of things, and this was mainly done through the dream sequences, which I think filled a lot of screen time. I think it was necessary for it to be in the movie, but they could have cut down on some of it. I don't know, just put something else in its place.
There's a massive issue I have with them scenes. Massive.
Go on.
So you've got the 5 kids, right, that are all killed, right?
Yeah.
The main character's brother was another kid who is alluded to have been killed. I don't think there's ever any evidence shown, but it's like, why did them 5 get to come back and number 6?
So,
is the point.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because we stuck around at the end of the credits and there is a little teaser for what's to come, and it's spelled out, "Come find me." And I'm pretty sure that was the first victim, which, as we know, was turned into the puppet. So I think that's going to be the next focus of the next film.
Okay, game number 2.
They're going to go searching for him, and they're going to realise that he's now this puppet.
That techno voice we heard, I'm relatively sure that's been connected to the puppet in the past.
Yeah, and they did play the music box or the theme in the credits as well, just before that. So yeah, if that wasn't enough evidence, then there you go, you got that as well.
It just occurred to me as well, there's never actually any chronological order like that we're given as to when each child was killed. So yeah, you could be right. That could be the original, and then every like the other 5 were after that. So yeah, that does actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Ambiguity is Scott's secret weapon. We all know it.
I'm just going by what we know from the games. So, but yeah, again, they're heavily focused on the lore, which makes sense. It's FNAF. The lore is important. But look, my favourite scene in this film was when the animatronics just went ham on the intruders that broke into the pizzeria. And this sequence was by far the best in the film. It was really engaging, and it felt true to the games as well, with the references. Chica getting the kill in the kitchen, Bonnie getting the kill in the closet. Yeah, it was nice. And I would have liked to have seen more stuff like that in the film.
I'd actually say my favourite scene is the reveal of future Springtrap. He's not technically Springtrap at the minute, but
Spring Bonnie.
Because that was the one scene that they actually did sneak in the white eyes, and it was like the one scene that was genuinely like suspenseful. Like it didn't feel like out in the open. Like yes, the chase scene when they go mad was good, but I don't know. There was a lot more dread in the reveal of Springtrap because obviously, again, with previously the animatronics have been a bit dulled down horror-wise due to their actions. As soon as we saw Springtrap, it was like, oh shit!
Yeah, like oh
Like we know,
shit, we know
like,
it's gonna go down.
like there's no happy fun playtimes with this guy. No, this guy, he gonna kill someone.
Back
So
to
I don't. That was my favorite things. That was like genuine, like just pure fear
yeah,
or
no, for
horror.
sure. And as well, like when Mike went to go taser him and he wasn't phased by it. As well, I think that's another thing that sort of griped me a little bit was the whole tasering the animatronics. I mean, it makes sense, but it just sort of made him feel a bit weak.
That is in the games though, not in the first game, but that is in game number 5, Sister
Yeah.
Location. You do actually phase the animatronics.
Yeah, I think them maybe just shutting down instead of falling, like ragdolling to the floor.
Yeah, that was
I think, yeah, if they had just shut down, it would have been, okay, cool. Them falling to the ground like a dummy just seemed a bit goofy, in my opinion. Back to that sequence, though, I do think that the Bonnie kill scene in the closet could have been improved by a long shot, by just one design choice. And we were mentioning this earlier about the eyes. I think because in this scene, Bonnie had the orange eyes that we see throughout the movie. And where the main focus of this scene was, Hank was trying to desperately turn on the light. And you can see Bonnie's eyes glowing in the dark. If you could instead see 2 just white dots glowing in the dark, and then when he turns on the light, Bonnie's got those dark eye sockets with the 2 white lights. And his mouth open as well. That would have just added a lot more fear into that scene, and it just would have been a lot creepier. But like I said,
Yeah,
I think that's probably one of the only scenes that would have benefited from having those eyes. Because
the white eyes are definitely a lot scarier because the more detail you have, the less afraid you are of something. Like the less details you have, like it's fear of the unknown. That's most people have it. So the less detail you give, the more scary something appears.
they just looked cartoony.
Yeah,
in
that was my
scene.
problem.
And I think, yeah, taking away those big cartoony eyes in that scene, because he then walks out and one of the other guys catches Bonnie in the corridor and he just turns around. If the eyes, I don't know, it just would have looked so much more intimidating. And I think that's one of the only scenes that would have really benefited from having those eyes, because I said I was going to bring this up earlier. I think the red eyes actually worked well when the animatronics were looking over William Afton when he was getting spring locked, because it was showing their hatred towards him. So again, I think context is pretty important when it comes to what eyes they should have had in those scenes.
What I think they should have done with the eyes is have them as they were throughout the majority of the film, but as soon as the animatronics realise like the truth, that's when their eyes go white. It'd be like a little thing, but it's like because I saw someone like the red eyes.
I don't know. I think that scene was fine when they were red. I think it should have been white eyes how it is throughout. Red eyes when Afton was getting spring locked to show the anger, and just black sockets with white dots in a few scenes here and there when the scene is needed to be a bit creepier.
See, I think the red eyes spelt it out a little bit too much. Like, yeah, we realise they're angry. You don't need to add like red eyes to just we can understand they're pissed.
Yeah, but
like,
they are shown with red eyes in a few games, so I think.
What was Freddy's? Well, he went bleeding T-Rex at the end of that scene. I can't wait to see the edit of that. Just the
I've already seen some people do that. Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah. Shall we go into like the goofiness then of this film? Because we spoke about how
have you got the time?
The tone was a bit over the place. This film didn't really feel like a horror film.
No.
I would say it had a strong start, middle, and end. The finale was good. The start was good. The whole subplot of what is it? Mike's aunt trying to get the whole lawsuit thing.
Custody. Yeah.
I
That went nowhere.
that went nowhere. I don't really understand what that was all about, other than just to get a cheap kill from Golden Freddy later on in the film.
Yeah, like it was so unceremonious. Like from how unlikable, because I'm not being funny. As much as she was just a nothing character, she played the arsehole pretty well.
Yeah,
I'll give that. We
she was an
didn't even
arsehole to
see
Matt Pat.
die. If anyone disrespects Matt Pat, they are my enemy.
That was a great
But
cameo.
it was just very like from someone who we really meant to hate them to not even see them die.
They were just
Like, come on,
letting
if I
them
see a
fall.
horror film that I hate, I want to see them die.
I think it was quite creepy how they executed that though. When Golden, like I wasn't expecting to see Golden Freddy in that scene, just standing in the corridor, and then you see the spirit of Golden Freddy just say, "Oh, it's okay, she's just sleeping." It was a bit of a fucking hell, all right, because it also added a bit of innocence to it. Because where they are children's spirits, like saying, "Oh, she's just sleeping," adds to that innocence. But
Something I'm glad they did is they actually went into like the spectral aspect of Gold, because he just like, how did he get in that house without being heard?
yeah.
He must have just appeared, unless he come down the chimney. But that would have been quite
And the
impressive.
scene as well when him and Abby are about to enter the pizzeria and she turns her back and he's just gone. She's like, "Where did you go?" Because that's just how he is. One minute he's there, next minute he's not. He's just very unpredictable.
Again, I'm just glad they went into the side that, oh, is he an animatronic? Is he a spectre? Like,
Yeah, there was a lot of mystery surrounding him in the film.
and there is in the first game as well, so they did him justice on that
Yeah.
one.
Let's talk about the scene that really stood out to us then.
Oh boy.
Everyone that's seen this movie, you know exactly what we're talking about. So, there was a moment when Abby, she befriends the animatronics, which, nothing wrong with that. It makes sense because they are children, so there is all that. But there's just a scene where the animatronics just start building a fort, and then they're all laying down on the ground looking up like it's some sort of cartoon. It felt very out of place. And it just didn't work well at all. I remember as well, like looking over at you, you just gave me a look and you went, "This isn't the FNAF I remember."
I don't mind horror films that don't take themselves too seriously, but they need to remember they are a horror film. That scene just tore you out of that horror thing. Like, there have been other scenes previously that were a bit like, well. This scene was like the complete just getting yanked out of the world for me. Like, it was at that moment I realised I wasn't watching a horror film.
Yeah, it just felt so out of place. But the thing is, though, like, I can understand the reasoning behind it, that they wanted to show that childlike side of the animatronics, but I think the behaviour could have been demonstrated in a better way, while still, like, making it creepy and keeping the horror tone of the movie. Like, there was a shot that was pretty well done when it was like the child spirit version of Foxy was on the stage and he backed into the curtain and then out came Foxy. Like, little things like that could have displayed that childlike aspect of the animatronics rather than just having them act like children, if that makes sense.
But you can have them act like children, though, and it's like the naivety of causing harm is a great example. Like, they're in like 10 feet tall, however tall they are, metal suits with the personality of a child. Children can be vicious.
I think if they had to cut that scene out, it would have been better. Like, it would have just...
Yeah.
I think that...
It was very distracting.
I think the scene where Abby first befriended the animatronics and Mike was very concerned, that sort of worked. It worked in the sense that Mike was thinking like, well, hold on, what the fuck? Like, these are dangerous and, you know, potentially harmful to his sister. That would have been a fine way to display that childlike, but keeping that naivety. And then go into the scene where Chica is with Abby and Chica tries to put her in the Springlock suit. That would have been fine, I think, in my opinion. I don't think they needed to have that weird sleepover thing that was just thrown in there.
See, I think the Chica scene is quite good because that, in a way, does show what I was talking about, like the naivety of children in like regards to pain and death. Like that, if you think about it, that's a pretty fucked up thing to try and do
Yeah.
to a throw them in a suit and have them basically get made into mince. Like that's quite a
Yeah,
fucked up thing
it
to
was
do.
very fucked up, but
They're
it
children; they
worked.
don't
It worked.
understand.
Exactly. And I think,
As far as they're concerned, they're just getting another friend.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's how they should have shown that childlike behavior, by making them do things that are like innocent but not at the same time, like keeping that creepiness, having them
Yeah,
be
misguided.
innocent. Yeah, exactly. Rather than just flat out playing, you know, like they could have literally had a scene of them playing at the fucking park, like Bonnie on the swings being pushed by Freddy.
That would have been the nuts if that had been shown.
Like they may as well have gone in that direction at this point.
I
Yeah.
will say, through intent or not, that scene did get one laugh out of me, and it was just Freddy being used as a forklift.
Yeah, but then Bonnie just falling over and then giving the thumbs up. It did make me chuckle.
Hey man, sometimes you just need to hit the deck and just let everyone know you're okay.
Yeah, I just think the whole animatronics falling over backwards, like
It diminishes the
it
threat.
does.
Yeah, you don't want to make them too intimidating because again, they are kids
No.
at the end of the day. They're not going to be going up Jason Voorhees on anyone.
No, of course not. But would you say overall was this movie worth the wait? It's been in production for 8 years, gone through so many different scripts.
Whilst, as I said earlier, I do wish they'd went a little bit further with some of the horror. I'd say it was worth the wait because everything we've mentioned, let's face it, didn't ruin the film for us. We still enjoyed it. We didn't feel like it was a horror film, but we enjoyed it, which at the end of the day is what you go and watch films for. You go for your enjoyment. So, yeah, I'd say it was worth the wait. Wish I could have shot it on a different day so we could have had the main man as the security guard, but oh well.
It is a shame that their schedules didn't align. But yeah, obviously, as people who grew up with these games when they first came out, it definitely brought a lot of nostalgia. I did have there was a few scenes where I just had a big grin on my face. I was happy. Yeah, there was a few things that they could have improved from a filmmaking approach, like the pacing. But overall, for a FNAF movie, including scenes that we've all wanted to see for a long time, they delivered on that. All in all, yeah, I'd say it was a fun watch.
What would you rate it out of 10?
I'd say a solid 6 or 7.
Yeah, I was going to go with a 6 as well. Again, I wouldn't say as good as it was. It did fail at the theme it was trying to go for, in my opinion. But it was enjoyable. Like, not for the reason I thought it was going to be. It was still enjoyable.
It was an enjoyable movie. It wasn't a good horror movie. So like I mentioned earlier, the film started off with a very strong start. The night guard was getting hunted by Foxy, which again, there was one scene in this film that was missing that I would have loved to have seen, and that was the iconic power shutdown and Freddy playing the Toreador March with his music box and the glowing white eyes. I think that would have been the perfect opportunity to implement that scene. So instead of it being Foxy, it should have been that power cut with Freddy, and then the night guard gets taken to the Parsons service where he gets the torture mask put on. I think that would have been a clever way to include it as well, but yeah, so unfortunately that wasn't in the film. But
Even sadder, it's really unlikely to make an appearance in another film because that,
yeah, exactly,
I'm relatively sure, is unique to game number 1.
it is. So yeah, just one thing I really would have loved to have seen is some implementation of that, and the Toreador March in general wasn't really in the film either, not that I heard.
No, I didn't catch it either.
It was in the trailers and everything, so
Yo, false advertising. What the hell?
but yeah, I just think if the tone of the start had stuck throughout the movie, it would have been so good, because I came out with my expectations delivered. So it's not like I went in with high expectations hoping for an Oscar-worthy film and disappointed that I didn't get that. It didn't exceed nor disappoint.
It done what we bare minimum wanted it to do.
Yeah.
But considering how close the franchise is to us, as you said before, that's enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like it delivered on what we wanted, bare minimum.
Yeah. Any other final comments then?
Looking forward to 2 and 3. That's all I'm going to say.
Damn right. I just hope it doesn't take as long as the last one.
I'd rather it take longer and be passable than just bust it out and it be
Yeah.
absolute crap. So that's been our pretty honest review of the film. Obviously, to sum it up, yeah, it had its little flaws, but at the end of the day, they were just that, little flaws. Like there was nothing that I kind of looked down for. Oh my god, this will ruin the film for me. Where so many other franchises have done that. But yeah, it delivered. It was a good film, and at the end of the day, we enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, and like we said, we'd watch it again. It's not a. We weren't repulsed by the film, like, oh, this is the worst thing we've ever seen in my life. We're never gonna watch this again. I hope it burns. Like, no.
That sounded oddly specific. We will discuss what film you're talking about later. But yeah, that has been our pretty honest review of the old FNAF movie. So we want to thank everyone who turned up today to listen to our opinions. We would obviously like to hear yours in the comments. But until further notice, I am Alfie, joined by Luke.
Hello. No. Goodbye.
One job. Actually, one job.
Anyway,
It's a
yeah.
50-50 and he fucked it up.
Keeping this in. Let us know, what would you rate this film? Did you enjoy it? Do you agree? Do you disagree with what we've said? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this movie. But yeah, that's been us. We always come back, so we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
What?